Hello, everyone. This is Mike Taylor. Thanks again, Tracy, for the introduction. Today we're going to be doing B1UP Item Placement. So as Tracy mentioned, B1UP is a really awesome add-on. If you've ever spoken to me, I will likely recommend it for almost everything. I think it's critical for every SAP Business One system. B1UP itself is an add-on that's a framework for doing a lot of things in SAP that you could say maybe are missing functionality. So you can customize your SAP exactly how you would like and do a lot of other really amazing things. So today I'm not going to show you the entire scope of B1UP. I'm going to talk about what B1UP is a little bit more, give you an overview of the item placement, master data customization, document customization, then we might have a little bit of time for Q&A. And Tracy, if you could just mute everybody that comes in, that'd be nice. Hello, please.
Just a sec, here we go. Hang on, Mike. All right, there we go. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to kind of run through this pretty quickly, and I'm going to make some assumptions that you know a little bit about UDFs and that you have some experience with SAP Business One. Due to the amount of time, I might be going pretty fast, but you can always get a copy of this webinar from Tracy. So again.
Yeah, and also I just want to specify as well, because those of you who have B1UP, you've got the manual that's in your system, but for those who want it, I've got a PDF copy. So if anybody wants a copy of the recording, I can send it to you with the manual, and you could actually see all the other things it does as well.
Yes, and also Boyum has an amazing YouTube channel, literally covers everything in here in great detail. You can just search for Boyum. It's all free. They don't make you pay for any of that stuff, so that's also really nice. Okay, so talked a bit about what B1UP is. It's an add-on, it's a framework, and it allows you to do a lot of different things. It's kind of tough to like say this is like a shipping add-on and it does shipping things because it's much more than that. So let's jump into SAP and look more about what it can do. So you have here your basic SAP Business One, and I'm going to look at an order.
Mike, I still see your PowerPoint.
Oh, geez, rookie.
There you go.
I was frozen the whole time.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Rookie. Okay, sorry guys. You're probably looking at my agenda thinking, what are you talking about?
Yeah, there we go. We didn't see that. That's all right.
All right, Friday morning, guys. Well, Friday morning for me. Sorry about that. We just learned about this pause thing, and apparently it bit me in the butt right there. So again, my agenda, what is B1UP? Talked about that. Overview of item placement, master data customization, document customization, quick Q&A. Again, I have to go really quick. You can review it and get a copy of it, or if you need help, just contact me directly. So what we have is a sales order, and while it looks like regular SAP Business One, you can see a lot of different things about this form that maybe you have never seen before. So one small part of B1UP is just being able to take control of your forms and remove certain things that you don't want to see and add things that you want to see and clean things up and make them really your own. So what you really want to do, and what my goal is a lot of the time, of course, I forgot to unlock this. Just one second, guys, here. Yeah, I already. My bad. Just one sec. Log back in, sorry. So what my primary goal is typically with B1UP is to get rid of the UDF sidebar. So I want to make sure that my UDF sidebar is nowhere to be seen because it is messy. And if you've used SAP with, over 2, 3 UDFs on that sidebar, it's pretty hard for anybody to understand what any of those fields are and what the point is for any of the users. So sorry, I had my test database, another issue with freezing. There we go. All right, we're all good now. Rookie mistake too. Okay, so the UDF sidebar, as you can see here, it has categories. These are very difficult to manage. As you get all these fields, honestly, from a user standpoint, you have no clue what am I looking at? Does this apply to any document that I'm using? And you get this effect with users where they start to just gloss over. They're like, I'm only looking for the fields I need, and I'm going to simply ignore the rest. There's nothing I need to see here. I just need to get the fields done that I need to do, and then I'm just going to move on. So I think that effect, it leads to lower compliance, and especially for new users of the system, you're going to just get this confusion, and you're going to get user A enters it. Maybe they have 50% of the training. They're going to enter 50% of what you want. Then you have another user. The user is going to enter 10% of what you want because they have less training. Then you're going to have the one super user that does it perfectly. So the problem is there with the mix of compliance levels, you're not going to be able to have consistent data, which is something that is one of the big issues with having all these extra fields and frankly, junk. It just becomes visual junk. It's hard to manage. So ultimately, one of the biggest things I'm trying to do is eliminate this sidebar, roll everything I need that's applicable to the documents into the documents, and then clean out the system fields that I don't need. Okay, so let's look at some of the difference here. And ultimately, with the item placement tool, you can block users from having that sidebar at all, or even opening it, because that's amazing, because then people can't just work around your stuff. So people are going to come and they're going to ask, oh, I want B1UP, and they say, I only need one license of it, or something like that. But the problem is B1UP is more of a framework, and it's a shared experience that all of the users that are using SAP Business One should see. And the reason why we're advocating every user have a license is because if one user opens up their sales order form and it looks like this, and another user opens up a sales order form and it's just plain basic SAP Business One because they don't have a B1UP license, they don't have the fields in context, they don't have the features, and they don't have some of the other more advanced controls, which I won't be talking about today. I won't talk much about macros. I won't talk much about any of the other customization stuff that you can have that allow you to do validations on the fly and other things like that. So we want all the users that are using a particular form to always have the same shared experience, and so that all the users have the option to see the same thing. So that's why we're going to advocate that all users have this framework. You don't develop this form look and then publish it like a separate add-on. All the users will run this B1UP framework all together. Okay, so item placement. So I'm going to talk a bit about the differences here. So you can see a lot of different things, and I just want to point out a few of them. So you can see a label here. This label can be made dynamic. You can see it's triggered from a checkbox here at the bottom. You can add your own checkboxes. You can add all sorts of fields all over the place. I've added a drop down here that's dynamically created from my own code. I don't need to use valid values. If you've ever used a custom UDF, you're going to see that that custom UDF with the valid values is not easy to manage, because you have to go back, kick all the users off, back up the database, and then modify the valid values. You can do them dynamically with item placement. You can see I've added tabs here. So I have a delivery log. You can see this document was emailed, and this will give you a list of an SQL query that in this case pulls from the delivery log. You can add buttons along the side here. You can add buttons in the main form. You can add colors here. You can add golden arrows. You can see if this particular order has a related activity. It lists one, and with this golden arrow, I can click the golden arrow to view the related activities. We have quick notes here that are read-only, so when somebody loads this particular customer, you can see a note that would be on them. And then you have the legacy code. In this case, the customer wanted a legacy code to show up that was searchable. So all of this type of stuff is easy to do out of the box. Some is a little more tricky than others, but the majority of it is done through the actual item placement tool. So if you're a super user with access to being able to edit, right-click and look at the item placement tool. I'd like to also take a moment to say that the SAP Business One out-of-the-box system has a user interface customization, edit form UI. I really do not recommend that you use this. It can, in some cases, corrupt tables. And it also it doesn't line things up. There are so many features that it's missing. You're better off struggling with the sidebar than you are trying to use the form user interface editing capabilities of out-of-the-box SAP Business One. So if you really want that custom look and feel and features, you need to go with B1UP. Don't try to get the edit form UI. You're going to cause issues in the future. I've seen this cause permanent issues. I don't want to be too gloom and doom. But B1UP is far superior and has more options than the out-of-the-box SAP Business One editing form user interface. So all of this customization, or most of it, is going to be done from this item placement tool configuration. You can see this is a very heavily customized set of form here, and you can see the system lines that have been customized. I'm just going to click View Fit Form Data. So you can see this is the system lines box at the top. This is where the system lines have been edited. Mostly I've been hiding fields I don't want, and some I've been moving. And then at the bottom, you have this really interesting section here with the custom items. So you can see here that when you add all these items from the sidebar, you can add buttons. It has a lot of different options. I'm just going to run through here and give you kind of an idea of what you have. So you can see the table, field, you can see your item placement. So typically when we're placing something like related activities, you could see the field here. It's related to another item. You can use item spacing, and then it makes it always in a relative position to the system field. And this is actually very simple to do, and I'll give you an example of this in a second. You have many different types of fields to transform this field into. So you can use static text, which would be like this invoice before shipment label. And this label could be anything you want. You could, any sort of note you want. Edit text would be a standard field. Combo box would be your drop downs here. You can have a combo button. Combo button would be like your, let me just update this, your copy to is a combo button, it's a multi-button. Checkbox is obviously checkbox. Text area is a text area. You can have a picture in a specific location on the form itself. You can have buttons anywhere you want. You can add golden arrows wherever you want. You can add new tabs, which I'll show you too, and you could add like a drawing item called a rectangle. A rectangle, I don't have a good example here, but it's basically just a rectangle, kind of like the outside of this content box. So you can put together a few fields, so they're kind of, again, grouped in context. A lot of these other settings, it's not too critical here. These left, top, width, and height are, if you're going to place an item using pixel placement, which is a direct placement, you can see I don't use it very much. It's not what we recommend. It's not what Boyum recommends. They're actually phasing it out. You always want to have the fields related to another field, because what's going to happen is if you just placed it and sized it exactly how you want, If a user switches the font size from 10 to 12, the system fields are going to grow, but your B1UP field is not going to grow where it's placed. But if it's related to another system field, they're all going to grow nice and proportionately. So the size 10 fonts match the size 14 fonts. The Tahomas match the Times New Romans. I have a few customers that really like their variety of sizes and formed fonts. Panes, you can move them between different tabs. Label, can have a label, cannot have a label. You can add your own golden arrows out of the box. If you have data in there, you can automatically show, if you had a referenced sales order or sales quote in a UDF and that was placed in your field, you can add the golden arrows just by doing this. Or in this case, I have some custom ones to do different things. You can basically make that golden arrow do whatever you want. Typically, you're going to be using macros, which I won't be talking about today. Choose from list. This can just make the drop down really, really simple. You can have it so that anything that you pull in that field has the system list. If you look at the valid values options from SAP when you just make a regular UDF, it's not this flexible. You can't use certain things. So this gives you a lot of good options, but you can also do it as custom as well. So that gives you ultimate flexibility. You can control what form modes the fields are active in. So in find mode, maybe you don't want to search by it. You can define your own valid values for doing drop downs. So the really nice thing here, and if you've ever tried to use valid values in the UDF, again, it's so restrictive. So what we would normally do in a B1UP environment is just make a blank alphanumeric field, and then you can set your own valid values, whether they're a static set of valid values or an SQL set of valid values, and if I have enough time, I'll show you those. Affecting the form mode means that certain fields will not need to affect your form mode. So if you want to make like an output information only field like a related activity here, if this changes, you don't want it to prompt you to update. You don't care about storing this one. It is just something that's output information only for the user to see, and not something that needs to be stored. So the affecting of the form mode means I can use all sorts of things to change this field, but it won't prompt me ever to update it. And this is one of the huge drawbacks of using formatted searches, is if your formatted search triggers and changes a field, it's going to make you update the field, update that form again to save that record. And you don't want to do that. Sometimes you just want a bunch of information that's output, and that's it. So the rest of these aren't too critical. You can change the background color. I think that's kind of fun. So you're going to have, approved there, and I have a couple other things set up in here that will just be kind of interesting to bring more context to users. Another little thing I wanted to mention here is this little question mark. So you can see credit approved, and if this was rejected, it would turn red. But if you push this little question box, it gives you some context again. So it says this field indicates whether or not a customer has valid financial approval to recheck credit. Push the check credit button below. Eventually it says see financial administrator for more information. So you can add these yourself into these fields to reinforce what the users will need to do. So if you look at my form, you don't see all those junky fields and you're like things. You asked me about some of those fields. Tell you the truth, I don't even know what they do. I mean, I could figure it out pretty quickly. Some of them I've never even used. So you can get rid of those. You can see this is nice and clean. And again, with the context and compliance, this will build that tremendously. So I'm going to jump over to an item master data. And I'm going to do a couple of things. So I'm going to run out of time pretty quick. So I'm not going to add a UDF. This is one of those things I'm going to assume that you know how to do.
No problem, Mike, by the way. If I don't really have a time limit. If you wanted to, I don't know what your schedule looks like, but you can go as you can.
I'll skip adding a UDF. Okay. So I have a lot of stuff to do. So when you've made your UDF, whether that was you or whether we did it for you, you can literally take this field, right-click, B1 usability package, add this UDF onto the main window. So I just click that. Do you want to place this above or below? Below. Ready to place, press the label. So now all I have to do, in this case, I'm not going to think about it too much. I'm just going to put it here. And you can see that is the entire process for basically adding a UDF. There's nothing else that I would really need to do. And you can right click here, and in the item placement, you're going to see that has appeared here in the UDFs. I'm going to click View, Fit Column Width, and that's going to fix up all my column widths. So this is extremely powerful and basic. You get everything set here to the system specifications. It's fully related to that field, and you can then go to customize it and add various things. I'm not going to do that. I'll just change maybe the back color to yellow. Nobody likes to view yellow, but just so you can see. And you can see immediately that with barely anything, I have customized it. So next one I want to do in my quest to get rid of this sidebar is I am going to place another field, right click, B1 Usability Package, add this UDF to the main window, below, okay, and I'm going to click my default bin. This pops in there, and now what I'm going to do is go back to my item placement, right click, edit item placement, and I want to switch this particular UDF to a checkbox. So the structure for a checkbox is a Y valid value and an N valid value. And this would be actually something for a checkbox that you would hard code in the UDF when you make it. It's the only requirement there. And you can go here, View, Fit Column Width, and I'm going to switch the type for this particular one to a checkbox. Close that. And I'm going to come back. And you're going to see here now that we have a hide from list checkbox. Very simple. And I made that there. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to add a drop down option for my default bin. As we were mentioning, there's so much do-it-yourself information. I use the Boyum YouTube all the time. I love this online help file. This is better than the user manual. You can just search for help.boyum, help Boyum or B1UP, and this will come up. And this is like a live version of the user manual. We can also send you the PDF, as Tracy had mentioned, but this is kind of the living version of it. So now it gives you all the examples. I'm in the item placement tool, and it has a nice little example sample here of a valid value. So I want to switch this field to a drop down. In this case, I'm going to make it a static drop down, B1 Usability Package, edit item placement tool. Of course, you need to define it as, well, let's push our View, Fit Column Width, as a drop down, which is a combo box. And I'm going to scroll over here to valid values, and I'm going to paste into here. Close this, come back to the form. And now we have a nice drop down. So this is very, very simple. And if you wanted to add this to all the users, you want to add a new option here, you just would need a super user B1UP to come in, go to their edit item placement, and add another option. And again, I'm not going to do it here, but you can look here and do an SQL code version here that will pull a dynamic set of information. And there's also a sample video here that goes extensively through this. So this drop down is very, very quick, and this will save if I update. Another thing that we would really like to do is add a tab. So I'm going to go back to my sales order. I'm going to call this the quest to remove the UDF sidebar. So in a quest to remove our UDF sidebar, a nice way to do this, instead of using your categories, you could do your categories as their own tab. So I'm going to go right click. I usually just right click on the tabs. I don't think that you actually have to. I think you can do it outside of the tab. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I just have a habit of doing that. Create tab. It gives you the option of doing two. I'm going to just do a custom tab for fields, but as mentioned, you can define an SQL query, make it in B1UP as an SQL report. It's basically the same thing. You just copy the code. It has more features. That's another topic for another webinar. And you can output that and link it to the specific documents. There's a lot of different things for that. So I'm going to just use a custom tab today. And we're going to say webinar example. And then I'm going to add a series of these that are kind of just randomly selected. You can do, there's a lot of different advanced configurations, and you can move fields up and down, and basically just click that. Returning to your sales order, you will see your newly formed webinar example tab, and that was, you know, a few seconds to do that. And you can already see how quickly you can eliminate this sidebar. You can just totally get rid of it. So the last blow to the UDF sidebar, I didn't realize how I'd be attacking this sidebar today, is to actually block it. So you can block this sidebar eventually. So I'll close this. I need to come back here and go to sales order. I'll go to my last one. And then ultimately, if you try to go, the UDF sidebar will be blocked and it will not allow you to open it. So that is at the point where you have everything in context. The beautiful thing is new users will never even know about that ugly sidebar, and you can kind of move on with your life and, again, reinforce your processes, make things really clear. You can have custom tabs, you can have custom drop downs, you can have custom buttons, and you can reinforce and build your business processes exactly how you want them. You don't have to kind of add a sidebar and add format search here and there. You can do it exactly what you want. As a last point to the item placement, there's another thing called function buttons on the side, which allow you to really quickly add buttons to do various things. So I've done a couple buttons here: batch selection, expiration, referenced customer batches, open orders, order history. These are all completely customized by me, and you can do whatever you want, and it feeds into the macro system, it feeds into the Crystal reports generation, it feeds into the SQL stuff, feeds into emailing, it feeds into all sorts of different things. But it's very, very simple to add your own function buttons here as well. So you just right click, edit function buttons, and from here I can add a new button. I could just say webinar test. In this case, I'm not even going to define anything, but I could use one of these things. The most commonly used one I would say would be universal function. I'm not going to do that right now because it'll require me to do that. But then once you update that, these function buttons allow you to kind of do your development a little bit more. You could do it quickly, publish buttons here rather than having to put the buttons into the form. So you can, in this case, credit check is better to be left down here, but it also is really nice for users to get used to these sidebar panels where you would have certain things that you would want them to do. So that basically concludes the various options and a very quick overview tutorial on how to use the item placement tool, and a couple of the different options you can use to visually customize your forms. I talked a lot about context, users, user acceptance, user compliance, and really we like to think about those things. I like to think about those things because if the users want to do it and it's clear to them, they'll be happier doing it and they can carry on about their job. It reduces training and a lot of those different things. So these item placements can be used on all forms. I showed just the item master data and the sales order basically, but you can use them on all forms to customize things, including UDO forms if you're familiar with those. It's very flexible, it's very powerful. You can conditionally show fields for certain users or for, not for other users. So you could do a goods receipt that has no document totals for warehouse users. You could just remove it. You could do all sorts of really interesting things conditionally with various user controls. You can combine a lot of the things I've shown you today with macros and with other universal functions, and that can help you to automate all of your forms and help you to run your business. So that's it for me today.
Thanks, Mike. Does anybody have any questions? I had muted some of you. You can unmute yourself or just, I've got the chat box there on the side. And I don't seem to have any questions. So thanks, Mike. And look, if any of you want a copy of this, and like I said, I've got the PDF document on the manual for Boyum, but I also have we have the help boyumit.com site. So oh, just a sec, I do have a question here, Mike.
Shauna.
Yeah, and here I didn't really see the question.
So
Can we use B1UP
Shauna,
in our test database?
yeah, Shauna asking me. Yeah, absolutely, Shauna. I think with on-premise installations, you could do 10 databases. So if I think it is already there. If it's not already there, I will definitely double check that for you. So I'm going to make a note of that, and I'll jump on and see test db install B1UP. But yeah, definitely you can use it for on-premise. I think it's 10, and for cloud you can do 2 at a time. So all right.
Okay, thanks, Shauna. Are there any other questions? All right. So like I said, if you just want a copy of this, or just send me an email, tracy@forgestic.com. So thanks so much, Mike. And I'll see everybody in 2 weeks for our next webinar. So have a nice weekend.
All right. Bye,
Okay, bye,
everybody.
everyone. Bye.